Lesson 84. How many rows? In this lesson, we'll talk about recording macros to operate on a data set where you may have a different number of rows every day. I mean, frankly, what are the odds that your invoice file is always going to have 14 rows? We'll record a macro to be able to handle that many rows, and the unusual way you're going to have to enter formulas in order to total the records in a variable data set. Okay, so here we have an invoice register file. Every day I open this file and I want to move down to the bottom of the data set to enter a total line. I also want to do some basic formatting. Well, in the last lesson we talked about recording a macro with the relative reference setting turned on. And certainly, as we go down to the last row in this data set, we want to have relative reference turned on, but we need to be smart about how we navigate. What's the best way to get to the bottom of the data set? There's a couple of options. One is to press the End key and then the down arrow key. That'll move to the bottom of the data set no matter how many rows we have, provided all of the date fields in column A are filled in. Another option would be to hit the Control down arrow. Either of these get recorded the same way by the macro recorder, provided we record them with relative references turned on. If we wouldn't have relative references turned on, Excel would record that we're going to row 13, and if we have a data set with more records, we're going to be putting the totals in row 14 every time, which will be a problem. Okay, so let's start in cell A1, and we're going to record a macro. I'm going to call it First Try. We'll store the macro in this workbook. Click OK. Now, the relative reference setting is remembered until you close Excel, so it may already be on, and in this case it is because it's highlighted. So I'll press the End key and the down arrow key to get to the last row of data, and then the down arrow key one more time to get to the total row. Type the word total and press the right arrow key 4 times. I want to add totals, so on the Home tab, I'll click the Auto Sum button. Okay, now at this point, I want to move back to cell A1. It's not that I want to move up 13 rows, it's that every time I want to move back to cell A1. So I'm going to turn off relative reference for the next line of code. Turn off relative reference, and now go to cell A1, and I'll hold down the Shift and down to select all of my headings. On the Home tab, I'll turn on the bold, and then use Format, Auto Fit Column Width. Okay, well that's everything I need to do, so I can stop recording. Remember, the Stop button is always down here in the status bar. Well, hey, let's try the macro. On Tuesday, we start in cell A1, and I want to run the macro. Now, I didn't use a shortcut key this time, so I can just come back to the Developer tab, click on Macros, find my macro, and click Run. Alright, well hey, it starts to look good. My headings are in bold, the columns are wider, the total even went to the right cell. Should we print it and send it out? Take a close look. These green triangles, they frustrate me. Don't they frustrate you? Most of the time it's telling us that we have a number stored as text, and frankly, I want the number to be stored as text, and I wish they would quit hassling me. I know that some people have even turned the green triangles off. But take a look. It says the formula in this cell refers to a range that has additional numbers adjacent to it. In this case, it's very important that we're seeing those green triangles. Let me edit this cell with F2. And you'll see that when we use the Auto Sum button, even though relative reference was turned on, the macro recorder failed. The macro recorder went back and grabbed the last 13 rows because that's how many rows we happen to have the first day. Very frustrating that the macro recorder fails to successfully record the Auto Sum action. Okay, well, I do have a solution for this, but I'm going to close this file without saving and reopen the file. Let's talk for a moment about this formula that gets entered with the Auto Sum button. E2 to E13, is there some way that we could tell Excel what we're trying to do, that we always want to go from the cell just above us, E13, but it always should go back to row 2? Well, you would never actually write the formula this way, but if you would put a $sign here, $2, that is essentially telling Excel that we always start at row 2 no matter what. And it turns out that if we use that format when we enter the formula, the macro recorder will get it right. So, start in cell A1, Developer, Record Macro, turn on relative reference. We press the N key and the down arrow key, and then the down arrow one more time. Type the word total. Now, instead of using the AutoSum button, which we've learned does not record the macro correctly, equal sum $2 to E13. The macro recorder will record that correctly. I'll press Control Enter and then grab the fill handle to copy to the right. Now I want to move back to cell A1, and remember before I turned off relative reference. Another way to go would be to type the F5 key, that's go to, and say we want to go to cell A1. Click OK. To select the cells in the current row, Shift and right, and we want Control B for bold, and Home, Format, Autofit Column Width. Alright, well I'll stop recording, and we'll go try this on Tuesday. So Control T to run the macro. Let's take a look at the formula now. Yes, it successfully went from row 2 to the row just above the current row. Alright, so it is a little bit difficult. It's a mix of relative and non-relative recording. It's using the proper navigation keys to get to the last row in the dataset, pressing End and then the down arrow key. And then learning that the AutoSum button simply does not work well in the macro recorder, but figuring out a different way to enter that formula so we can easily solve this problem. Well, I hope you found that helpful, and thanks for watching.
Looking to advance your career by acquiring new skills? Tired of expensive off-site training programs? Wish you could learn from the best instructors in the industry? Look no further than Live Lessons. Self-paced, personal video instruction by the world's leading technology publishers. Each live lesson comes with a DVD featuring 3 to 4 hours of instructor-led classroom training, sample program code that allows you to work along with your personal instructor, and an example-rich study guide. Live lessons allow you to watch the entire course from start to finish, or navigate directly to any of the individual lessons. You'll literally watch over the shoulder of your instructor as he shows you how to build state-of-the-art applications. Live Lessons, the power of the world's leading technology experts at your fingertips. To learn more, visit mylivelessons.com today.